Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Welcome to the Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Foojan Zeine. I'm a psychotherapist, an author, and the creator of the Awareness Integration Theory. And I'm so thrilled to have you join us today for what I promise you to be an awesome and amazing discussion about flow. Yes, flow. In this episode, I chat with Dr. Susan Jackson. She is the renowned psychologist and author celebrated for her pioneering work on the psychological concept of flow. Her expertise includes high-performance psychology consulting, academic research, writing, and flow experience assessment. With a PhD in sports and exercise psychology, Sue has extensive experience in sports, performance, and health industries. In experiencing flow, Sue shares practical strategies for achieving optimal experiences and unlocking human potential across various domains, solidifying her as a leading voice in the field of flow. We talk about what flow is, how to experience it, how you might get distracted from it, what could prevent it, and definitely the steps to get there and experience it in any area of your life and really experience being fulfilled and joyous. That's exactly how I experience flow whenever I'm in there. Now be sure to subscribe to my podcast, this podcast, YouTube channel, and connect with me through my website, foojanzeine.com. I also invite you to download Foojan app, which also has a Mira in it, which is the AI companion, which will answer any of the questions that you have from the Awareness Integration Therapy and Theory. So when you go to the Foojan app, you'll have the opportunity with 31 areas of life to go in and do a guided journaling, gain skills in all of these different areas of life. And then now you have Mira, which is you can, as you go through each one of these areas, ask questions from Mira, any questions that you have about your life in that area, and it will respond to you. It'll give you pointers, it'll give you skills, and it'll give you reflective questions, and it will guide you toward what it is that you want, the answers that you're actually needing. Share your thoughts with me. I love, love, love to hear from you. So please contact me via my email, social media, in any way, because I really love to hear from you. And without further ado, Dr. Sue Jackson.
Listen up if you want to promote your personal growth and self-awareness. I found the Foojan app last month and I have been absolutely loving it. I personally have never learned guided meditation, but thanks to this app, I now have learned incredible tools for my own stress relief and emotional self-awareness. Not to mention, there are self-evaluation tools and professional coaching available to utilize however your journey to self-discovery takes you. Join Foojan today and redefine your life one step at a time.
Do you wish to wake up one day and hit the Life Reset button? Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want by Dr. Foojan Zeine, helps you navigate crucial life areas, heal the past traumas, and cultivate fulfilling relationships and careers. Life Reset is your guide to a profound journey to reshape your life. Grab your copy on Amazon or Audible now and embark on a path to a more joyous and fulfilled life.
Hello, it is so nice to have you on our show, Dr. Sue Jackson, everyone. Welcome.
Thank you, Foojan. It's very nice to be on your show. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, absolutely. We're from across the world. You're coming from Australia.
That's it. Yeah, I'm from Australia, although I did my graduate studies in North America and I've lived there for quite some time. But yeah, I'm Australian. And yeah, so we are crossing time zones here.
Yes, we are. You're about 16 hours, I think, ahead of us, right?
Yeah. So next day here.
Well, we're doing time travel together.
That's it.
And a good topic to be in the flow while we're
Exactly, because time disappears in flow.
Yes. You wrote a book, Experiencing Flow. And this is beyond going with like anxiety and boredom. And it was interesting for me to see that you had attached these concepts together, because in my head, flow, it's more like there's a being completely engrossed with something, and there's no other kind of emotions that are showing up except like passion and excitement and a wow and all of that. So when you had put in beyond boredom and anxiety, it was interesting for me to see the differences between the two. And I know you've written books about flow. So the first question is, how come you got so interested in flow and the state of flow? And so maybe even describing what flow means from your perspective.
Sure, I think you've done a lovely job at describing it, Foojan, in terms of that, like being totally involved in what you're doing, and there aren't emotions other than like there may be some positive emotion happening, but you may not actually be aware of that until after the fact, not actually during the time in flow, because basically in flow you're totally involved in what you're doing. So there is no mental energy left to be thinking about other things like past, future, how am I doing, what do people think of me. Self-consciousness drops away. Time, as we alluded to, can change, and so on. And so it's a very high level or complete level of task involvement is what flow is. And in terms of like the subtitle that you picked up on, Life Beyond Boredom and Anxiety, there's a great model that Csikszentmihalyi, the founder of Flow, developed, where he describes how flow sits between these experiences of boredom and anxiety and other psychological experiences. And that's all based on, in flow, you're in a very challenging situation. That's one of the preconditions to flow, or conditions of flow, is that you've challenged yourself and you brought skills to meet the challenge. So as we know, like when we experience anxiety, it tends to be that we're challenged and we don't have the skills, or we don't believe we have the skills for that situation. And conversely, when we're in boredom, we have a high skill set and we're not challenged and we get bored. And so that's a little bit of an explanation of why that's in the subtitle. But the main reason that's in the subtitle is, the reason I started studying flow is because I read Csikszentmihalyi's first book on flow, which is called Beyond Boredom and Anxiety. And that was published in 1975. And I picked that up on the University of Illinois library bookshelves when I was studying for my master's in sports psychology. And because I picked that book up and I read it, I learned that there's this concept that is an experience that I've experienced that's important. And that's why I went and studied it.
And it makes a lot of good sense, since your degree and your field is sports, because the concept of flow really makes a lot more sense. People experience it a lot more in sports. It's not that people don't experience it other places. I experience it, for example, at work, when I'm sitting with a client and I'm completely engrossed and connected with their world and their experience and my own experience and my body and all that's happening. I know that, that experience is also a flow, but I think we have contributed a lot more to, sportsmanship. And when they are completely in the zone of doing something, and they're all of them, every cell of their body, let's say, every muscle of their body, every kind of concept of existence is within that experience. And that's, and supposedly when you are in that mode, that you have much better results in sports, or we could say anything else that you do. So when you said that's what your field is, then it's like, that it makes more sense why you would be interested in that, because that's where we see it a lot more.
Well, that's true. It's a visible arena, isn't it, to observe other people in flow. I mean, that doesn't mean that in sport you get in flow all the time, as any athlete knows. But for me, I'd come from a sports background and was always interested in how the mind was influencing my performance and my experience. And so that's how I decided to go into the field of sports psychology, where my master's and PhD were in. And specifically within that, I was looking at flow in elite athletes. However, flow isn't reserved just for elite athletes or athletes in general. We can observe flow in other settings. So like musicians, actors, we can get a sense when somebody presenting, and we might be in the audience and we're like, wow, this person's really connected and connecting. And then what matters, I think, more than our observing other people in flow is that we can access it ourselves. And like you talked about, Foojan, that like when you're working with clients, for example, that connection, and that you can be so totally involved in what you're doing. And so flow is something we can all experience. And I think that's important to recognize.
What you said was beautiful. The two concepts of being connected and connecting all at the same time. So
yes.
let's share what is it that you're connected to, and what is it that you're connecting to?
Sure. Well, with that example of somebody performing on stage, whatever they're doing, they're connected to their task. So the task is they may be talking, they may be singing, they may be playing an instrument, they may be acting. They're totally connected to that task, to that role that they're playing. And then they're connecting because if there is an audience, part of the task is to connect with the audience, right? Just like as a therapist or psychologist, connecting with your audience, with your client or clients in a group setting is critical. And you can only do that when you let go of your own baggage, your own thoughts and interests, and you decide to become totally focused on that task. And so, it's the connection is with the task, and often that task involves other people. It doesn't always involve other people. You may be in a solitary engagement, but you're still totally connecting with that environment. So I'm thinking now of a rock climber, and they may be the only person on the rock, but they're connecting with the rock, and that's what they report. Athletes will report feeling like they are part of what they are doing. So a cyclist will refer to feeling like the bike and themselves are one, and so on. And so the rock climber feels like they and what they are climbing is one. And so there's this total sense of connection, which is really what makes it so special, I think.
Very much. And I've also heard it a lot in the realm of spirituality, where they experience this connection. And that's pretty much the state of flow, when what that they're experiencing or they're imagining, or there's a vibe out there, or all of that they're completely in the flow with every cell of their body. They're experiencing it. It's interesting that sometimes people put those pieces together. And passion, it seems like, when you're completely passionate about something, every part of you is engrossed and one, and you called it one.
That's it.
I remember I had taken this class with this person who was a teacher. Oh my God, I forgot the name. It's a boat that they're doing, like they're pedaling and going through, and it was watching him, the boat, and the ocean. They were all one. Every part of all of this, the waves, the moves, the boat itself, and then the how he was canoeing and going through, and every movement of his body. And I remember he had gone from California all the way to Hawaii with this, and
wow.
Yes, I mean, it was like amazing of how just watching someone going through, and every single aspect of him is just the one. You said it. It's the one. So now, I know that in your book you write about how do we get there? What is it necessary to get there? And then what are some of the stuff that stops it? Right. So obstacles are things that would prevent us to get there. And they're definitely paths to get there.
For sure. Where would you like me to start, with how to get there or the things that prevent?
I will go with the prevention first, because I think each one of us, as we're listening to it, we could relate, oh, I do that, or I do that. So if we could get those first out of the way.
Okay. Well, I think the number one challenge in our life that we live with high technology and multiple demands is distraction, and constantly having some input and external input. And I'm talking about different devices, and the fact that we're always being we have something to respond to. We have this stimuli all the time. You know, if we have a technology as part of our world, and most people in the Western world do, right? And not just the Western world, most people in society these days are connected to technology. However, that's not the connection that often will help us to get to flow. It actually is a distracting one, and that's because there's constant demands to change our attention all the time from one thing to another. And, you know, social media is designed that way, for example. It's about giving you a new input every few seconds. And so we're learning to be distracted. We're learning to always switch our focus from one thing to another, to another, to another. And that doesn't help us sustain focus on one thing. And we can only achieve flow when we have this ability to sustain our focus. And this is where meditation and mindfulness becomes invaluable, and that's why it's such an important skill for us in the lives that we live. One of the reasons anyway is because it helps us to become aware of where our focus is and to bring it back to the present. So it gives us a way of bringing our attention back to the present. And so in the book, Experiencing Flow, I cover that relationship between flow and mindfulness in some detail. So distractibility and distractions, self-consciousness. So that's related to the anxiety component that I talked about, where you're challenged, but you don't have the skills, or you doubt. So like I often work with, I'm in performance psychology now. My work isn't in sports psychology specifically. I still work with athletes, but I work with anybody who's interested in enhancing their performance and what they do, and not just their performance, but also their experience, because that's kind of critical to get across that flow matters for the quality of experience it provides us in what we're doing. But oftentimes, and it doesn't matter how elite or successful we get, most people still have a tendency to doubt themselves and doubt their decisions and so on. So when you've got that self-doubt, obviously some of your attention is taken away from the task to yourself in a way that is not in the present moment. So that's another detractor or preventer of flow. What else? Well, obviously not having the skills, because we only experience, if we don't, and that's, I guess, interesting too, like if we like to be in our comfort zone, so we're not willing to extend ourselves, we just want to be comfortable, for lack of a better word, with what we're doing, we're not likely to experience flow, because flow only occurs when we step beyond our average challenge level in whatever realm or realms we operate in. So we need to challenge ourselves a little bit, and that's where we can touch into flow. So those are some of the things that might prevent flow.
I think added to what you said in your book is lacking motivation to prevent.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Non-optimal arousal levels. Non-optimal environmental and situation conditions, where performance is going poorly. I do a lot of public speaking, so you know, reading that is like, you look at somebody's face at that moment and you take it very oh, they don't like what I said, and then from that moment on, you kind of I get out of the flow of talking and said, oh, come back, because I get engrossed in one person's facial expression, and God,
that's so interesting,
right?
That's so interesting. Yeah. Yeah, like the feedback. So what you're touching on there, Foojan, is actually one of the conditions of flow, which is receiving immediate and clear feedback. So you've described there receiving immediate and clear feedback, but unfortunately that feedback is interpreted by you as they don't like what I'm doing, or what I'm doing isn't engaging them. And so then you start to doubt yourself. But the thing is, they may have got some message on their phone and they're really upset or worried, and it's got absolutely, and they're not even listening to you because of that. But that's got nothing to do with you or the quality of what you're doing. That's all to do with them. And so as you know, like, it's about focusing on what you have control over, and that's your own performance. And so that's when, if you get that negative feedback, for example, that doesn't mean you can't access flow. That means it's important to reset your focus back to the present. And if it's changed your arousal level in some way where you've got a little bit anxious, for example, then incorporating breathing skills to help you sort of bring that arousal level down if that's appropriate, and then just focusing on the task. So I guess that's the feedback is critically important to be able to experience flow, in terms of it's one of the factors that facilitate flow. But then how we interpret feedback can make it not a facilitator, just as your example described.
And you talk about inappropriate focus that either will prevent it or even disrupt it. Can you share what you mean by inappropriately focusing?
Well, it's just not on the task. I mean, it's very simply is you start to take some of the attention from what is required to perform the task. And when I say the task, I'm just using that as a generic term for whatever it is, the activity that you are engaged in at any time. And that might be a conversation, that might be giving a speech, it might be performing on stage, it might be on the track, on the basketball court. So the task is I'm just using that generically, because flow, as I said, can be experienced in any setting, and the research supports that. And so, like, if you take some of the focus away from the task, then it's not, you're leading yourself down a path that's taking you to the past or the future, right? And not to the present moment. And therefore, you're taking yourself away from flow. Again, it's just a matter of developing psychological skills. And this is what I do in working with performers is, okay, so you are going to lose focus. You are going to have a focus that's not appropriate or not optimal. It's about recognizing that and then bringing your attention back through psychological skills that help you to do that. So what we focus on matters, but how we refocus matters even more, and how well we can do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some people think, when I've talked to them and we're working on, for example, the future and the goals and how they can bring themselves, some people have it as, I have no idea how I get there. I just find myself there, like as if it's an accident that happens.
Exactly.
And they have a control or a doorway. You know, it's like, I don't know what the door is. I don't even know how to get there. I can't even explain to you what the steps is. I just find myself there. And then when I'm there, I'm there. So please let us know how to get there. Where can we find the door?
Sure. Well, that's why reading Beyond Boredom and Anxiety, as I did in the 1980s. So my work in this field has been since the mid 80s, first as a grad student, then as a academic, and now primarily as a practicing psychologist. But I had that same perspective, Foojan, that when I had been in flow, it was luck, you know, and it was kind of random. And it was only on reading Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's book, Beyond Boredom and Anxiety, where he outlines the experiences of people in different settings. So some athletes, some musicians, chess players, and surgeons at work. And despite the variance in setting there, when people were totally involved in what they were doing, totally connected, their reported subjective experience was very similar. And then it's like Csikszentmihalyi also set out in that first book and in his many subsequent books how to make it more likely. So that's where you've asked me to go. So I just wanted to share that. I think most people perceive initially that flow is just an accident, a lucky accident, and it's not. That's the good news. Yeah. So in terms of key factors, I've outlined some of them. So the challenge skill balance, that's really important. Clear goals, so having a clear purpose, which gives you the motivation that you referred to earlier. And then receiving feedback on how you're progressing in relation to your goals. And that is within a task. So I'm not talking here about your long-term career goals. I'm talking about your goals in the task, in the performance, in the activity that you would like to achieve flow in, that you're very clear on what it is you're seeking to achieve, and then you're receiving feedback. And the important thing is that you're actually attuned to that feedback. That means you have that awareness that you can respond, like be aware and take that feedback in a positive way. And so those are called the 3 preconditions to flow: your challenge skill balance, the clear goals, and the feedback. And then, as I mentioned, I think right at the start, the focus is critical. So the being able to focus your attention and getting better at that is critical.
My experience has been more from the focus, definitely.
Okay.
Like I remember, and I train therapists and coaches in my model, and one of the things they keep saying, I get distracted and I'm not there. And I know because I've experienced it this way, and it's like, this is how I've done it, so I've shared it with them. And when they do, it like becomes that doorway to that. Almost like I zoom in and focus completely through my eyes and through my 5 senses, and let's say 6th sense, also my gut, my whole kinetic energy, that I just focus out there. So even if a client is sitting and talking, all of my senses are zoomed out there to them, even like almost saying what they're saying in my head. I hear it. I hear what they're saying in my head. I see every movement that happens. And that has become like a doorway to completely go into this overflow, which is, you said, like connected to and connected with. And it becomes that. It's like such a connection of becoming one with that person, but with whatever observation I get. So the other part is, well, am I...
Okay.
So the minute I do a guessing game, then I'm in me again. And it's like the minute I come out of me and I get in completely one with whatever is out there, that sense of flow starts showing up. Or with music, right? So every time I've completely come out of me and I've been engrossed in music or sound, and then, the singing or the instrument that is there. So it has really, my own experience of it is there is no I anymore. There's no me or an I. This I or the me has become kind of like entrenched or attuned. That was your word, attuned with whatever task or the person or object is out there. That's how I've experienced it. How does that sound to you with your experience?
Absolutely, spot on. Yeah, like because you are using the senses as you described, you're using cues that are in the present moment, that are only in the present moment. You're getting out of your own head and you're focusing on your task, which is that connection with the people you're working with, and so you're responding to that feedback. And so, yeah, you're very much in the present moment. And as you know, like meditation and mindfulness is a great pathway to help people learn those skills that you've obviously learnt yourself. So to be able to develop that and to be able to keep developing it and keep coming back to it. Because I think that for myself, like I tend to be quite analytical and probably a tendency to be self-conscious as well. And so, it's just like you have whatever your challenges are, it's about recognizing they're your challenges. So maybe your challenge is you get very easily distracted. So like recognize that's your challenge. And when you want to be totally engaged, switch off all those things that are going to be distractors, and then give yourself opportunity to be focused, rather than being at the whim of whatever message comes in or whatever other notification you get about this is important to respond to, but like maybe that's not part of what you're meant to be doing right here and right now.
And the question comes a lot of times, which is like, when someone who has an attention deficit, can they be in the flow? And I'm like, yes, when they're hyper, because attention deficit means sometimes that they're completely hyper focused in something.
Exactly.
And when they are like, and they're doing their gaming, or, they're playing with something, creating an instrument or something, they are so hyper focused in that they're the flow at that moment. Doesn't matter how many times you call them, they're not even hearing you. So
I think you've identified a strength of people with neurodivergence in terms of attention, and and so if you are one of those people, then play to that strength. If you want to experience flow, like obviously you've got to develop skills to know when hyperfocus isn't appropriate as well. But yeah, no, I think that some people do have a good ability to focus, and they've developed that, and other people are more prone to be influenced by the external input. And so recognize where you sit on that continuum. We can all get better. The good news is we can all get better. And the more that we do train our minds, the more we're going to be productive, perform well, and importantly, enjoy what we're doing more. Like if we're engaged in a conversation or an activity, and part of our attention is always somewhere else, because it's like, oh, well, there's this next thing that's actually more important, and I'm just going to like be here now because I need to be, but like I'm actually preparing myself for this more interesting thing that's going to happen next. Then the quality of experience in that activity that you are presently engaged in is not good. And so, if you keep having many of those experiences, Chicks at Me High wrote that the quality of our subjective experience determines the extent to which life is worth living. So like if you're always waiting for that next better thing, then you're losing out on life as it's showing up for you, and that the life that you have in front of you. And that's why flow matters, I think, so importantly, is that it gives us a gateway to having positive subjective experience.
everybody experiencing flow, life beyond boredom and anxiety, but by Dr. Sue Jackson. I know that as you were sharing, you talked about the benefits of it. Like, why should it be in flow? Obviously, it feels good. Definitely feels good. But beyond that experience and the feeling, also, what are other benefits of for us to be, practicing or having, even having this as a goal to learn, to be in the zone, be in the flow in that we are, or with some tasks that we choose to be, hopefully with any task that we have, it'll be good, right? Like people could do this with drinking coffee, could have it with work that they do. They could have it by walking in the nature. They could have it by sexual experiences in a flow. So, there's so many experiences that when they allow themselves to be in the flow, it takes them to another layer. Could you share the benefits of why this would be something we really want to practice and move forward with?
Sure. So for two reasons, Chicks at Me High has outlined two main reasons. One is for the immediate quality of experience, as I've mentioned, and the second is what he terms growth in complexity. And that is we're becoming better versions of ourselves, and that goes back to when you're in flow, you're challenging yourself. Okay. So if you put yourself in situations where you're challenging yourself frequently, regularly, then you're developing skills and you're constantly moving upwards. So it's not so there's this challenge skill balance, but that's keeping on moving upwards. And so, once you get to a certain level, whatever that is, then it's that next level. And so it's like you're moving forward, you're moving upwards, and you're becoming the best version of yourself. So, I think that that's a very important aspect of Csikszentmihalyi's contribution, is that it is a pathway to becoming the best version of ourselves.
Beautiful. Is there anything we haven't shared that you really want people to know?
The motivation for writing the book that I wrote this year, Foojan, was because I worked with and was mentored by Csikszentmihalyi, who I reached out to when I read Beyond Boredom and Anxiety in the 80s. And I was at the University of Illinois at the time, and he was at the University of Chicago. And I reached out to him and didn't actually expect a reply, but he was very responsive and very encouraging of me researching flow in sport. And ultimately, we wrote a book together called Flow in Sports. And Mike, if he goes by Mike, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, Mike in North America, Western world, Mike has written a number of great books, and a very wise thinker, very broad and deep thinker. And so to have that opportunity to be mentored by him was really wonderful. And on Mike's passing in 2021, I realized we had talked about doing a second edition of Flow in Sports, and that obviously wasn't going to be possible. And so I just started thinking, well, how can I contribute? How can I help foster the legacy of this work, this contribution that Csikszentmihalyi has given the world? And so I eventually found time to write this book. So this book is to try to help promote Mike Csikszentmihalyi's conceptualization of flow, and to also show that it's accessible. So it includes the work that I do as a practicing performance psychologist, and how I work with high performers to help them access flow. And just as we've talked about today, it is an accessible state. It doesn't have to be a random state. It's something that we can make it more likely that we're going to tap into. So that I just wanted to mention, in terms of why I wrote the book, that was the motivation behind it.
And it's close to your heart. And thank you for...
It's close to my heart, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And thank you for not letting someone who was so influential in your world, but also in bringing a concept out, for that to kind of go away with them. This way, their work and their concepts keeps living among them.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. How could people find you?
I have a small social media presence. So on Instagram, SueJackson_flow. My website is bodyandmindflow.com.au. And I'll also share those links with you, Foojan, if you want to add them in the show notes, for example. And on my website, it's a contact form if anybody wants to reach out and learn more about flow, or about the work I do, that they can do that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time, come and being with us all the way from the other time zone, from the future.
Yes, that's right. And it's been very enjoyable, Foojan. So I really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you and to engage with your audience as well. So thank you. And it's been great. It's always good when I can speak with someone and I can recognize that they know what that experience is. They've been there. Yeah. So thank you for sharing your experiences as well.
Oh, absolutely. It was a joy to have a conversation with you. And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.
Are you a psychotherapist looking to enhance your practice? The Awareness Integration Therapy developed by Dr. Foojan Zeine is a comprehensive guide to the principle and techniques of this powerful therapeutic approach. Join the growing community who have elevated their practice and expanded their skills by embracing awareness integration therapy and witnessing its life-changing impact. Order your copy on Amazon now.